Nohumai Heremai, Tenakoto, Tenakoto, Tenakoto Katua. It's a great pleasure to welcome you to our lecture series, wherever you are based, in New Zealand or from all over the world. And it's my pleasure as well to introduce you to Raquel Peñalosa as part of our Thinkers and Doers lecture series. For those that don't know me, my name is Bruno Marquez, and I'm the Program Director for Landscape Architecture at Te Rangawaka, Victoria University of Wellington. If it's the first time you're attending our lecture series, it aims at bringing together practitioners, scholars, students, and a wider community of landscape architects and affiliated built environment disciplines to basically share ideas on latest innovations and all the challenges that we are currently facing together. So this is an initiative between the New Zealand Institute of Landscape Architects, our Wellington branch, and the program at Victoria University of Wellington. It's my great pleasure to introduce you to our 10th speaker, Raquel Peñalosa. Apart from being a good friend and knowing each other for many years, she's a practicing landscape architect for more than 30 years, and her work explores the synergies between landscape architecture, urban participatory design, active citizenship, and social innovation. She's currently practicing participatory design and integrating collaborative processes to bring into the design conversation the active citizenship practice for more thriving and human-oriented cities. Through her practice, she has developed public space projects and events in Canada, California, and France. Raquel was also the IFLA Americas region president from 2014 to 2018, and she led a very important document called the Americas Landscape Charter, and she was also the president for the Canadian Urban Ecology Center in 2014. Currently, she's the president and leading the Communitic, an open innovation organization who is leading the coming of the Fab City Summit to Montreal this year in 2020. For those that don't know,
2021.
Yeah, 21, sorry.
No, because that was what's supposed to be this year.
Yeah, oh yeah, it makes sense. The Fab City is a movement to transition cities in 2054 into greater autonomy of a model of resilience and local production, which places the city and its citizens in the middle of creation, distribution, and reuse of the large majority of what they consume and produce. So this lecture will be titled Reconnecting with the Elements for a More Thriving Life in a Public Space, and we'll look at the practice of designing public space from an experiential perspective. From the traditional design practice that sets its design production in a certain distant and controlled process by the designer, to the integration of exploratory approaches such as the living lab approach to envision the open space as the laboratory of public life or social innovation as an innovation practice to pursue the social needs of the space beyond its sole formal resolution. Raquel's presentation will be showing us how emerging public spaces are at the core of the public life when using open, directed spaces such as urban vacant lots as territories of new possibilities and spaces of temporality that have meaning, allowing for citizen participation. So Raquel will very soon be sharing her screen with us. So please keep this window open so you can actually see her slides. I would also recommend you to keep yourself muted throughout the talk. And don't forget that at the end, there will be opportunity to pose questions, either verbally or you can actually write them in a chat box. Without further ado, please welcome Raquel, all the way from Montreal, Canada.
Thank you, Bruno. I'm very happy to be here. And yes, I will go in right now and put my presentation on. Oh, okay. So I have to do the sharing. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought, I don't see you anymore.
Here you are.
So where do I go for the partie du début? Oh my God. There.
Perfect.
So, since I'm going to share something that I really have not done in this manner with this community, which is the professional community. So I wanted to experiment something that is, I know a lot of you probably know, storytelling. And as a practice of how I'm going to present to do this presentation, as a practice of really being very in tune to a process that I have been going through on the last, I would say, 10 years or so. And so, as I mentioned, departing from the traditional practice and exploring other practices and seeing how they connect and how they become one, because this is really difficult to be always in two worlds. So this is what I'm exploring, and this is the in-between space that, or the ecotone that we can call it, or the between the cracks where something new can happen. So the way I'm going to share this is both through projects that are done in a traditional manner and questions that come out from this project, and what makes it triggers what might have been a shift to explore other ways of dealing with this territory, which is this public space, and how as designers we can also learn and embrace other ways of doing this. And we all, I think, the posture that I would like to throw here for all of us, that we are all citizens. Sometimes we talk these citizens, but we are also citizens. So how do we embrace our contribution to the betterment of public life, being directly connected to it and being part of, and not as a producer of the space. So the notion of reconnecting with, so it's reconnecting the elements and reconnecting with the elements. So that's the opening. Yeah, I'm in Montreal. So I'm connecting through the virtual space, Auckland and Montreal. I'm originally from Bogota, Colombia. This is where my sister and brother are from now. I'm still in this American continent, but this is something that interesting just to say how when you move from a different place into a new place, what are the elements, what are you searching for? And I think this is a search for belonging and identity. So how this comes into the questioning on public space, which is really, so just for all of us to set on the same space. This is Montreal, which is an island in the St. Lawrence River. Bruno was here in 2017 when they did the World Design Summit. And this is our world of being surrounded by water and having what we call the mountain on the backdrop. And so this duality of always being from the bottom, looking at the mountain, being on the water, and from the mountain, looking into the city. So this is, which is a pretty flat level because we are in the Champlain Valley, which is, it was covered in the Quaternary by, so very, this is why the indigenous movements came. Montreal was one moment of happening and settlement for the indigenous communities here. So this is Montreal seen from our mountain. And so Montreal is a city of street activity. As you can see, the mountain is again in the backdrop. Montreal is also a city where things happen. It's a small scale city. It's a scale where you can have the ability to meet the other. Montreal is a city of neighborhoods, but also is a city of vacant lots. And sorry for the color of this this photo, but this image, this is amazing. I realized that anything before 2000 was in paper, was not a slide. So this is what I'm going to tell you about, because we talk about the vacant lots also as being the territory where anything can happen. We can explore how we live in the, or we create public spaces for a thriving life in the city. So a lot of vacant lots. This is back in the 1990s, end of 1990s. I was working for the city when I came back to Montreal, and I was working for the city. The whole city was, I mean, it was just in a very, it was a economical depression. So a lot of vacant lots and difficulties. So this is a space where, since I was working for the city and being involved as the landscape architect responsible for landscape architecture in the arrondissement, the core arrondissement from all Montreal and the core the center of the city, I was involved on the regenerating or thinking about open spaces and vacant lots. And so this is one project. So the reason why I'm bringing this here is how how vacant lots, how do we work with them from the traditional perspective of the landscape architecture profession. So this is the metro, the Champ de Mars metro, which is at the connection between the modern city and all Montreal. And this is the state of the space. And as the entrance to the heritage city and all, it was really not very attractive, and it was more a functional space for more parking and for the metro employees. So this is a beautiful building with work from Marcel Ferrand. And so it was very inspiring for me. So this is really idyllic space. I mean, we're in the middle of the tourist city at the same time. So the idea was to do, and it was a temporary intervention because the lot was not a public space lot, but it was to be built. This is how most of the metro projects had. They did the metro outcome, and then it was going to be development afterwards, but this was left like this because of the economical depression. So I came in, and this is the project. It's a project that meant to connect the different features of the old Montreal and the new city. But it was also an exploration. It was the first time perennials were used, an exploration on the experience, on just promenading, just walking through the space. And in a very simple manner, traditionally here, but with so this was a transformation of this vacant lot that had a very interesting impact on people, on the experience of going through the space. So since it was a temporary project, so here's more of the planting, playing with the colors, and very straightforward but powerful project. Not geared to have people sitting in it. They didn't want it, but people started using it, and very so it created an interesting impact. But again, it's a vacant lot transformed as we do. We design, we program, and then it was beautiful. This is fall again. The City Hall, Montreal. So then from that vacant lot, we go into vacant lots in St. Catherine Street, which is the main commercial street in Montreal, very patrimonial. And again, this is the 1990s. This signage that you see here, it was to be built. This is 1995. And the building that was supposed to be there was 1990, opened in 1992, and nothing was happening. We're here in the middle of Concordia University, the main thoroughfare. I mean, this is a very vital street in Montreal, and St. Catherine Street. So it had at least 20-25 vacant lots like this one. So since all these vacant lots were to be to become building spaces as they became after. So what do we do? What was the temporary? So the notion of temporality coming into the resolution, or at least a temporary embetterment of the very depressed location that we had here. And so there was one empty lot here. On the back there was another one, and another corner was another one. And this old theater, beautiful old theater, that disappeared afterwards. So yeah, this is very situation that was typical of all derelict vacant lots. But this is interesting. This is that what happens when you leave a space like this untouched. And so lots of native or spontaneous vegetation that we will call in certain ways like not very novel, it's not the ones that we would like to use, but I think it has meaning, And so here, this is another view, another other lot. So what happened? So we intervened in a very it was interesting because we were able to maintain to deal and say, hey, we have to maintain this vegetation. So it was because it was a deep hole, so it was protected. A lot of sidewalks were built through, and so it created this little pocket of enlargements from the street. So it really became another kind of like a transition, less formal and less imposing on the side. So working with whatever was there than the other one. So, but this was the site. So I'm going to show you something that is part of this notion of storytelling, something that strikes you and says, hey, what's going on here? So this was the scene from the street, and then vegetation, we could see it happening. We know what was going inside. I mean, there was a whole wall happening inside. This is in the middle of the city. This group of, we can say whatever we want to say with this, but this is amazing. These people created their own salon, the living room. I went into the space through a little entrance, and I just caught this, and I thought, my God, we walk outside and we feel that nothing is happening, that there is no life here. And then these people, which are the street people, are having their own world. And there was fire, peat in there. And they didn't want me to be there, so I had to run outside. But I think this is a new possible. And this image stayed with me for the longest time. So I think this is a breakup moment. This is something happened there. Something made me think that what's out there? How do we, these people have a knowledge of the space that we are not seeing because we're looking at it from the outside and from the perspective of it should be something else. So moving from that, I really, not that this image that I moved directly right after that, but at the end of the 2000s, there is something happening in my brain. And also I just wanted to add, and I'm looking at time, Bruno, that I had done a research in Bogota, Colombia, 1990s. There was an amazing citizen movement led by Antanas Mocus, transforming the city. I mean, we're dealing with the 8 million people city, real problems. Montreal has no problems, referring to that. And not to go through the whole process, probably a lot of you know about it, but I think what it was interesting was that he developed, this is what I'm talking about, soft design. It was not only creating better public space, but he created a culture, a citizen culture that was called that, cultura ciudadana. So citizen culture was to say, we as citizens of the city, so all of us as citizens of the city, we have a direct, we have rights, but also we have responsibilities. So creating a relationship So I said, so I was doing a research on public space, and said, so I says, developing the public identity. So what Antanas Mockus was able to do in Bogota was to connect territory and the people. And this is when you develop identity. So what are the processes that allow us to do this? So I started moving into completely outside of our world of the practice, the traditional practice, moving into the social innovation practice, and seeing what was going on and how can I learn to see and have new perspectives and new approaches to allow me to be more human and more connected. So this is Art of Hosting, which is you can find it. It's an approach that brings into the conversation a more humane center. It's not only people centered, but human centered. You talk from your heart. So there are 4 pillars that are the base of this approach, that are: you host yourself, so you're present. You host the other, so you are actively listening to the other. So this is a little bit of what we're doing here. You participate, so you are present. You know, you're actively participating, contributing, and listening. And then you co-create. So these are the conditions that you can develop to really have powerful and sense making situations. So just talking about what are the relationships, so in the processes, a lot of workshops that we did, that things started to appear. What's a safe space? How to create the safe space where we can all have a voice, and not just having the voice of the experts, designers, but just, there is a collective intelligence out there that we have to learn to appreciate. And because there is a knowledge on the place that we probably don't have if we just stay distant with our processes all the time. So these are all based on the process of co-creation, but it was interesting to see how all these became kind of like all these concepts and understanding. And I think what the most important thing is to practice, to be a practitioner. So I became a practitioner, and I'm an apprenti, so I'm learning. So what I'm doing right now is I'm in the process also of learning and conveying to you what moved me to bring into this way of doing. So from this first event in 2012 emerged this project that I had that was called A Table Citoyen. A Table Citoyen is a citizen, is just to say, come to the table and let's have a conversation. I'll do a little bit. So there was a newly designed space in the city, in my neighborhood, and again by the metro, and so done as we do all the time, really well done, very excellent. So I was wondering what else can be done. What's the other? How do we spark this so people can empower themselves and appropriate themselves, take ownership of the space. So the event was so what makes people think about. So that's I'm just doing a capture of a video that we did there. How public space decision making happens in a city. So one of the core questions for the project it was a citizen initiative born from a dream of giving voice to the citizen as part of the municipal elections in Montreal, having at the time, and with the goal of collectively creating a citizen manifesto. Inspired by kitchen table conversations, A Table Citoyen was done in collaboration with 2 other groups. And so we had, what happened is that we set ourselves to have conversations with the people. So we were sitting Conversation Citoyen. So it says, in this place I dream of. And so we had called a lunch hanging, for your clothes, for hanging your clothes, and people were putting their dreams. We had this clothing, and I dream of my children and my family to have a community garden. And so it was the first collection and first contact for me to see how wonderful it was when you give the citizens, when we give ourselves the opportunity to say what we're dreaming of and what we are, and dreams become reality, and how we tackle that. So this is a project, La Dame se refait une beauté, which is a participatory process to transform a local street. So this is one project where we kind of like, we use the social innovation and the Living Lab also approaches to really now come into actual public space project transformation. So we were, I was with a group. We were invited by the mayor of this borough to do a participatory process in order to have the voice of the citizens, in order to do, because the whole street was going to be renovated, and we're in a diverse neighborhood with newcomers and the older generation, and very, as you can see, street, we can say that this is right, there's people, but there were things happening. So what I'm going to do with this one is just a little bit of how the space is. And so the process, just quickly, the first, it was interesting, I would mention that the first thing was that the mayor of this borough was willing to go into a process like this. Politicians always are a little bit fearful of opening too much. And so I think this is a first step that we'll see at another project. So the first, we went out to the street. So we set ourselves on the street and talking. There were questions, and so we were asked the people, what's, and the questions were geared to see what was the relationship with the street, what was for them that was important for them on the street, what was memories from the street. So this was done on a 2-day process that we sat on the street. And then the second part was to do workshops. So the way this workshop worked, we had a first session of workshop. I'll just do it quickly, and then we see what comes out of this workshop, and we do a second one. So the way that, and also how do you bring a citizen? We're so used to with our language and the way we do things, and then how we amalgamate, because of our the way we understand everything at the same time. But when you talk to people, you have to change your language, and you have to change what's a street, what's a sidewalk, what's a crossing, what's a landscape, so bring down to either in a level of communication. So, these were paper, the gray is the street, the purple is the sidewalk, and so how you play with it. So it was just, how you have to shift also when we are communicating, and is it our way of doing, and so this is how they were explaining after, and then making sense. So after we collected all this information and see what the people would say, we go back and then we try to make sense, to see what was important to them, what's their understanding of public space, and what are the needs, what is the knowledge that comes from the street, what happens on the street, what's the story that we don't know because we don't live there, but they live there. So the diversity of people that come into these meetings are important. So after making sense, we went back and started drawing, but drawing in a manner that was kind of like, whimsical. What's the crossing, and so after we did this went into these boards that serve as the communication on the meeting. And also, I forgot to mention that all this was happening also on the web. So Even the questions from the first phase were on the web, so people could answer if they were not able to come. And all these panels were also put on some storefronts, so people could come in, and there was somebody facilitating and bringing. So the entrances, what are the entrances? So the street, the two anchors from the street, what do they look like? What are they? You know, this is, so the drawing that, I was the one who did these drawings. The drawings that came out had to be done in a very simple manner, had to be done so we did the entrances, we did the crossings, each element had to be separate, the sidewalks, circulation. So was there, because there was an issue of do we bring a bicycle path here? How do we do it? There was a lot of issues with some of the crossings here that were very complicated. You know, they had to put somebody to help because there was always, the children had to cross. So how do we solve that? So I think it was a quite interesting. So this is the plan. So I mean, when we come out and then there is a plan like this in a transitional manner, you know, this is what we do all the time. But I think this plan, in a certain way, reflected in a very certain way, what people wanted. So we thought, and so after this process, this was brought in. We were not the ones who did the project, and I didn't bring photos of the end. But it really is a very. I think it did help. To understand where were the issues for the citizens and the things that they wanted to have. So it's a very lively street now, and we hope we can have more of these processes. So now I'm talking about another project. Now we're going back to vacant lots. This is a champ des possibles, possibilities. Field of possibilities. So it's a citizen-driven project. This is now in a more residential neighborhood. That's where I live, in Le Plateau. And this is a huge empty lot. You can't have a fully structured place and then just wait for people to adjust to it. I think this is a very interesting notion. So this is as we will call it a brownfield. Creating public space is a continuous and dynamic process. And then now we talk about co-creation models are viable for design, but also tool for implementation and continuity and site change through the history of each community. This is a very engaged citizen community. And what happened here is a site that was in an industrial area. This is the whole site. We were standing right by here. And this is, of course, what triggered the project was an intervention by an artist. It's a piece, it's a project that is, I think, has been done throughout the world. So this is the site. This is a brownfield left over from, you know, you have the railroad here, and then this is the industrial buildings, and now being transformed also. There is a lot of clothing manufacturing here. So the artist comes in and starts doing this. And so then it triggers the interest by the citizens. And you can see they're very built around. So what is interesting in this project is that then it becomes a project that is brought by the citizens. And it's good to say that, you know, what is this project? What is happening here? Then there is the whole process. This is all but it's all citizen driven. And what is interesting in this project is that we have at this moment in Montreal and in this neighborhood progressive politicians. So this is a project. This is the biologists explaining what was happening and the whole how the whole plan, as we can see it here, they were doing the identifying, and then in order to continue the ecological process of the sites, because this there was a joint process with the mayor's office, and they declare this space natural public park. It was a natural public park. And so in order to recognize the value of the biodiversity in this area and everything, the ecological corridors and the citizen-driven. Evidently, it is a contaminated project site. So the whole piece here that has been decontaminated at this moment. And then there is, the intervene of the development of a design project that is all based on, as we can see it here, this whole area has been decontaminated at this moment, and is so it is. Well, this year has been much more difficult, but it's a place where anything can happen. They have a season programming, and so it's been, it remains a very powerful and very citizen-driven project. So now, let me just jump back to a project that I am developing right now, is with the idea of less CO2 by design. So that was kind of like trying myself again to using social innovation processes to bring it back to us. How do we do design in time of climate change? And so this project, it was a project that I called on friends and said, my question was, how do we connect climate change and the citizens? Because in your local environment, the question was that, we talk about climate change and it remains a high level. I mean, and the citizens, we said, what can we do in my environment? What can I change things? So that was the question. So we can gain power and take action. And so this is a citizen-driven citizen scientist project. And the idea was to tackle pollution as being the first element for this project, to tackle pollution as a way of understanding what's, how, I don't know, yeah, it smells bad, or, I don't know how to deal with it. So the process is that you walk, there's a walk in your neighborhood, and you use your body as your primary sensor. So the primary sensor to see what's, what's disrupting the natural systems, what's smelling, what, is there a lot of noise, car circulation, and the heart, be connected to your own territory and be engaged in it. So at this moment, if we become more sensitive to our environment again, we build measurement tools to quantify our senses. And then we can collect and complete this data and then analyze the results and then bring them back to the politicians and said, yes, this is proven that in my neighborhood, there is pollution because of this and this and that. And so a citizen science project is a project that is supported by a community of scientists. There is a methodology. So it empowers the citizens to have a clear voice and acknowledge that, yes, it is polluted and it is causing me problems, health problems. So the sensor to do this is the project. There is one part which was the walks, and then the cannery. The sensor to detect air pollution became the project of one of our members, Annie, that works with Communotic, and she took it as a development of the sensor in the Fab Lab. Communotic is a Fab Lab also, and so why cannery? Because canneries were used on the mines to detect the quality of air. So they were the first. If they were not seeing anymore, that means the air was really bad. So that's why we call the project cannery. And cannery is a prototype of a sensor. And what we wanted to do was to make a sensor that was more more accessible to the children, more accessible to the everyday citizen, so they could use it. And the idea was that, so this is what happened. Annie developed the sensor in the form of a canary. And the idea was to do a prototype the walks with the citizens at the Fab City event that was to happen in Montreal in July this year, but it did not happen. But the event happened online, FabX Live. So the 31st of July, we did a prototyping of the whole process. So there was a group making the sensors, and then there was another group. We were having a conversation about citizen participation and the acknowledgement of the citizen science process that could give the citizen the ability to have a scientific knowledge of the quality of the air. We were going to, we're going to talk about the water, all the different elements that can be involved in the understanding of the impact of climate change, but we started with this one. So this is the online process. We are all online. And then we're having the conversation in Communautique, which is the kitchen, that is the conversation piece. And so we're doing this online while they are fabricating the sensors outside. And then we went out to prototype. So we went out to the street with the sensors and to see how we were going, how they were working. So how to be connected from local to global. I'm almost finishing, Bruno, to local. So climate change is a global issue, but we need to solve it locally, but we need to be connected. So this is what is interesting on being on the Citizen Science Project, because it allows to the local data to be sent out into the web. And so this opens to me to talk about the next project, which is the Fab City. A Fab City is a movement that emerges from the Fab Lab communities, which is fabricating, that we're able to fabricate almost anything we need to, but also a Fab Lab is a third year, is again another space for empowering the citizen to use technology as a way of fabricating everything we need to, but also creating the collective intelligence around bringing the citizens with, there is a lot of people, experts that come to the Fab Labs because they like it, and then there is an exchange. So there's a community that comes to that. So Fab City is 2054, imagining that a city that can produce and it's a shift on how we can live in the city. So what I wanted to mention here was that in order to create the event, and there's going to be, during the event, there's going to be a campus of prototyping and experimentation. And this is going to happen right where our Communautique is. And so we use a living lab process. So living lab is, again, gathering the community and asking the community, what do you want? What do you see here? So we gather more than 150 people. So the process has been going on since it started in September, in May of this year, last year. So we've been having these circles, gathering and creating, co-creating both the event and the prototyping of the campus in Montreal. So I think this is possible. This is maybe a little bit off from what we are traditional doing in our world of landscape architecture, but I think it empowers, is a way of is the soft design, as I had mentioned, and it gives us, I think it changed produces a new culture of collaboration. And I think this is what is important. All of the people that are invited here are the people that we feel that are part of it. And then we ask the others, is there somebody else that is not sitting here? So the project was, the process is called Imagining Fab City Montreal. So it's learning by doing. So this is what comes out. There is a graphic facilitation. So we harvest everything that is said, and then we make sense again. So we use this to make sense. And so here we go back to vacant lots. So this is the old, this is not our building, but it's similar to that. We are in another part of the city where industrial area where they were the clothing manufacturing. And this empty lot that is sitting here is again another opportunity for exploration. So in principle, the campus is going to be gathered here for the summer, if it happens next year. And this is interesting because this site here was the manufacture, the building that was demolished from the site was a building armament building that was built for the Second World War, and women, most of women were working on this as they were on the manufacturing here. So this site is the city, the borough wants to build their new city hall. So with the idea of developing a project or prototyping the site for the campus, we were also be involved with them on imagining what will this site will be for a city hall that is connected to its citizens. So this is just a first plan that was drawn on the process, using the same process as I was describing before. We had small groups gathering, conveying around different topics. So there was one group talking about the design of the site. So this will be a temporary site for the different people that will come and prototype around Fab Labs and the Fab City, but also will be thinking, okay, what's there? How can we prototype or explore or practice how the next iteration of the site could be? And it's a very interesting. So as a conclusion piece, well, I thank you first for listening to me and allowing me to share with you this notion of reconnecting. And I think in our what comes from this whole process and my whole experience is the need for maybe consider and really embrace in our profession to be the stewards of the land as really as a way of working, as being more as a facilitator of the processes and the collective intelligence that is out there. And so this definition of stewards of the commons. So we are there to service. So that's, I think, to me, that's an interesting posture. How do we put ourselves in service of and develop and go through the process of deconstructing ourselves on what we had learned from and be an active contributor to our cities and to our environment. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Raquel, for that very inspiring lecture to take us through the beautiful city of Montreal. I have very fond memories at the time I visited at the 2017 for the conference.
Am I listening? Really, is my computer or the line? Because your sound, your voice is coming really.
I don't know. I'm hearing you really well.
Yeah, you sound real crazy, Bruno.
Okay.
Turning to a robot.
Can you hear me better now?
No.
No.
Interesting. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, better.
Better.
Perfect.
That's better.
Yeah. It just happened.
All right. I was just saying thank you very much for the inspiring lecture and for taking us through the beautiful city of Montreal. I have very fond memories of the time visiting Montreal back in 2017, and having you as our host was great.
That was very nice.
Raquel, while people prepare their questions, I would like to kickstart with, as a landscape architect, and myself also having a lot to do with participatory design.
Yes.
It's quite an interesting thing to bring communities together and to brainstorm with them. What are the biggest challenges that you faced while dealing with communities, as well as with the different stakeholders, such as city councils and politicians that tend to be very afraid of participatory design?
Yes. Well, I think we have to be very humble, and we have to think that whatever we can do, we will do it the best we can. And because at the beginning you think you can change the whole thing, the whole system, and no, I think it's a culture change. It's a real, it's deep. I mean, this is not something that is just superficial or another tool. Is a deep change in culture. So as you can see, when you have, like we had in Notre Dame, the mayor being so open to go through the process, and even I didn't mention that, but when we did the first workshop, there was a group that held back and started talking to a lot of people, saying, "Don't go there because this is the politician and they want to bring." So we had to deal with that, and we said, whoever is coming is coming. And then he had to deal with his political background and say, shift that. But I think it's a culture change. There is, even in this project for the Champ de Mars, at this moment there was a competition for a completely different project, is resolving a major infrastructure problem that had been there for a long time. So I was invited as a jury for the competition, and also we were three professionals that work with the winner to continue follow up on the development of the project. And I knew that another group had done some participatory processes on the project to see what the people saw and wanted to have. And when we were talking and developing the project, they completely evacuated that information. So it was interesting, because I knew that was because I kept on asking, what came out from the citizens process, and how is this going to inform the designers? And they said, "Oh, it was not important." So I think it's a time for, you just have to do it. The more we do it, and the more we probably are able to make the small changes. I think I had this from Ezio Manzini he's a social innovator, and he has a program in Politecnico de Milan, and he said that the 4 words are small, local, open, and connected. So be close to the community, and then will change, but stay connected, because there are other communities doing the same things all over the place. And when all these get connected, then it becomes the capacity to change the culture, I think.
Great answer. Questions from our participants? Okay, so there is one on a chat box, Raquel. I'll read it to you. From email by Lan. I want to ask, what do you mean with prototype, and how do you see it? I did not figure out because it is a new approach tool for me.
Okay.
And now you are with us.
Yeah. Do I say it? Is it your question?
Yeah.
Is your okay? Prototype. Just in the more easy way of conveying that in industrial design is where we see it the most. You know, you prototype, you design something, and then you make the object and you prototype it in order to see how it works. You know, or what is how it functions. Is this the right form? Is this so? You prototype until, and then you do iterations, and then until you find the best, because you have make it function, and you have seen, you know, what's not working, or maybe the material we use is not good. So that's prototyping in an object. Prototyping in the universe that we're talking about, which is public participation. Prototyping is I'm going to refer to a project that was on another Imaginons Saint-Marc, which was transforming a church. So during 3 months, there was a huge living lab process that was put on the table, and every 2 weeks, so it was processes of every 2 weeks. 2 weeks you will make sense, and then you come back. So it was the idea. The first was to say, to ask the citizens, what were they dreaming about? What was the whole community that was imagining, how do we transform this church? You know, what can it become of this church? And then there was all different people coming in, people, you know, escalating and making a market. So all these different things were the dreams. So for these 2 weeks, we were holding workshops and inviting the community at different times to come and deposit their dreams. And then we make sense, and then we come back, and we will prototype a market. Have you ever seen a market in the church? Not really, but let's prototype it. Let's make it happen, you know, and experience it. So when you make things, then you see, oh, this is great. I've never imagined that we could be sitting selling, you know, fruit in the church, or whatever you want to do. There was another project, and so by prototyping, what is interesting in this living lab or social is that you iterate. There's always there's never like a, you know, you build something, once you build, it's done, you know. How do we transform that also? How do we, you know, usually we get the project, we build it, and we go. You know, it's really hard to be involved, but we should be involved, because people will use the space in manners that we have not thought about it. So it would be interesting to prototype, to set the space in a certain manner with information that we have, and then facilitate it or be in the space and see if there are other uses that we're not thought about it, and then we can make it happen. You know, there's a lot of what we're calling the acupuncture interventions. So you do temporary interventions to see how people are using the space. What are the needs? You know, do we need more seating here? What kind of seating do we need? Do we need shade? You know, so to be able to experiment, I think this is the word. So prototyping will be, there is another, if I may, event that I didn't mention, is called 101 Days. This is a citizen project that was born in Bogota by a connection from Amsterdam. And this, every year, 100 activities were happening in one day. And this was to make the citizens activate themselves. And sometimes a citizen looks outside and says, oh my God, you know, there are no flowers, or there is no planting, or there is no sitting area around, and, you know, or the crossing is really bad, you know, how can we make this crossing better? But you don't act, because this is not what it, you know, we're brought into, you know. The city, you complain to the city, you know, you go to the city hall, and then he says, you know, you haven't done this, I voted for you. So how can you transform that energy into an active energy? So during 3 months, we will do workshops with the citizens about their dreams, and then and make a prototype of. I will give an example that is a beautiful one about this kid that was 9 years old, and he lived in an area where he had to cross this really thoroughfare every day to go to his school, and it was just a nightmare. He couldn't go alone because he had to be with his mother because he felt insecure. So his idea was to do is it a duck crossing? When you see ducks crossing, a family of ducks, UCK crossing, everybody stops. So he prototyped huge dogs, and the whole day, that one day, so the whole family had these images of the dog family crossing the street. So for the whole day, he played that. He prototyped a way of showing to the cars that he wanted to be seen and to be respected and be in a more secure way. So prototyping is making something, experiencing, iterated until it responds to the needs of whoever is using it.
Thank you very much. I understand now.
Okay.
Thank you. Raquel, one last question from a participant, Tina. Can you talk about how professional practice can make time for engaging different fields like the Fab Lab, or does this kind of work exist outside of private for-profit practice?
Can you repeat the question again?
Can you talk about how professional practice can make time for engaging different fields like the Fab Lab, or does this kind of work exist outside of private, in brackets, for-profit practice?
I think this is a challenge. I think it's a challenge of there is a lot of people doing this now. There is a lot of groups that are involved, and then the group that I work with is a Percolab, which is a more facilitator. So we do the project, but it coming directly from our practice. It does exist, and I think Jan Gell, in a certain way, he does that. There are some other groups, practitioners that have decided to work in this way. But it is a challenge to shift and because sometimes this is not what the paid commissions are going to come, so it is. I think the more we do it, the more it will become. I hope not mainstream, but it become a way of doing it, a way of and not a separate. Because this is a little bit of my practice. Sometimes I said, okay, I'll do this traditional project, and then I come back and I do this project. So I'm still kind of like navigating between these two worlds, and so the more at one point is just to see how we can make it happen in one and be paid for.
Well, Raquel, thank you very much for connecting all the way from Montreal to our international audience, and to share, all the projects that you have been going through over the last 20 plus years. It's great to see you as well.
It's great to be here, yes.
On behalf of the New Zealand Institute of Landscape Architects and Victoria University of Wellington, I really like to express my gratitude for you to join us this morning, or this evening, I suppose, for you.
Evening is pretty good, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And thank you everyone for attending again to our Thinkers and Doers lecture series. And I wish you all the best, and I hope to see you again soon.
Thank you, Bruno. Thanks to all. It was a
Thank you,
pleasure
Raquel.
to share with you. Thank you. See you again.
Take care.
Thanks, Daniel. Yes. Take
Bye-bye.
care of yourself too. Bye-bye.